Today we're going to start with Psalm 133. Know that one?
I like that.
It's short.
Yes.
Hey, Nancy.
Good morning.
Morning. It says, a song of ascents of David. How good and pleasant it is when God's people live together in unity. It is like precious oil poured on the head, running down the beard, running down on Aaron's beard, down on the collar of his robe. It is as if the dew of Hermon were falling on Mount Zion, for there the Lord bestows his blessing, even life forevermore. What kind of vision? Because I said, dew from Mount Hermon falling on Jerusalem, that's 255 miles away.
Maybe a little poetic, right?
Yes, right,
Yeah.
right.
We're strong wind.
My first vision was oil going down my beard.
Same here.
I like just the image of, read that first verse again.
How good and pleasant it is when God's people live together in.
All I could think
Amen.
about then in that moment, wouldn't it be nice to see that in my lifetime?
Yes.
Well, I
you do-
suppose in my next
you-
lifetime I'll see it.
We saw it yesterday. We saw it with 27 Miata cars and 40 some people eating and talking and sharing at a table.
Concert.
And we saw it at the concert, a week or so ago, where all of these people from all around, we had people from Boston and Kentucky and whatever, all around just joining together.
We
So-
saw it last night at Trunk or Treat.
Trunk or treat.
I was telling Jeff, I was kind of like, it's been one of those weeks and I was kind of dreading coming out last night to do it. And two people just touched my heart so much at it that I came home and told Jeff, I just had the most pleasant time. Claire, you were absolutely one of them with your cleaning and giving, and I thought, here is Martha at work. And
But it, to me, that is relaxed. Like to have to be out with like little kids ricocheting all over the place, that would be stressful. I told them last year, like I need to be, put me in the kitchen, let me clean up, let me.
But just watching you seemed so happy.
I
and
was
like,
yeah,
I was
cleaning
like,
up, I was like, it was
that
great.
just, and then talking with Steve
Craft.
outside while we cooked hot dogs. He's just a delightful man. Just to talk to, and he had so many stories to tell us. We mostly just sat and listened. It was kind of like delightful.
You'd probably feel really good if you came over and replaced a few boards on my deck.
I'll be there. Watch.
So this is called a Song of Ascents, Ascents, and it's lightly sung by pilgrims traveling to Jerusalem for worship, creating kind of a sense of unity among the different diverse groups of people, coming together. And the oil running down Aaron's beard and into his robes symbolizes kind of a holy blessing, flowing down and signifying how unity really brings sacred and abundant kind of a refreshment.
Okay, perfect in line with today's sermon.
Good. Very good.
Once again, job with the sermon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just really amazing how often that happens.
Well,
Is it?
okay.
Any other thoughts about the song? Because we're going to get into Samuel, and people aren't really living together in unity here now. Very well there. So we're still in like kind of the first section where it's focusing on Samuel, and we will be getting into, hopefully getting into Saul's story with this. So last week, we kind of ending up with, what had happened, the ark. Remember the Philistines had taken the ark away and they didn't have very much luck with it. They said, how do we get rid of this thing?
It's almost like a comical story.
Yeah. Yeah, especially like the golden tumors.
Yeah, the golden tumors.
The
and
golden
tumors,
tumors.
and everybody kept falling over, I'll call it falling face flat on the floor.
And then, so finally, the ark comes and the people of Beth Shemesh are harvesting their wheat and they see it coming, and they rejoice. And then they took burnt offerings and made sacrifices. We talked about that. And then it said, but God struck down some of the inhabitants of Beth Shemesh, putting 70 of them to death, because they looked into the ark of the Lord. So the point is clear that, this ark is not Israel's trophy. It's not, God opposes pride, whether it's the Philistine, whoever it comes from, whether it's from his chosen people or the Philistines or whoever, that he'll punish you no matter what. And I would have thought that, looking at the ark would be, you would know that something was gonna happen. So I assume that these 70 people were actually looked at the ark. And so then the men said, well, we're going to tell these other people to come and take it. And they took it and they gave it to Eleazar says, you're going to be the one to take care of this, and that it was in, I'm not going to pronounce the name of the town, right? Kirath Jearim, something like that.
Good
For
enough
20
for
years,
us.
20 years in all.
I'm not gonna get corrected by us.
So we kind of started with 7, chapter 7, toward I think at the very end of last week's lesson. So I'm going to have someone read chapter 7, 1 through 17. I think that's just 17 verses there.
I got it.
Sarah, you're going to be the
I
one.
was not too long.
Her name is someone.
And it happened from the day the ark dwelled in Kirath Jearim, that the days grew many and became 20 years, and the whole house of Israel was drawn after the Lord. And Samuel said to the whole house of Israel, saying, if with your whole heart you now return to the Lord, put away the alien gods from your midst, and the Ashtaroth, and set your heart firm for the Lord, and serve him alone, that he may rescue you from the hand of the Philistines. And the Israelites put away Balaam and the Ashtaroth, and they served the Lord alone. And Samuel said, assemble all Israel. And Samuel said, assemble all Israel at Mizpah, that I may intercede for you before the Lord. And they assembled at Mizpah, and they drew water and spilled it before the Lord, and they fasted on that day. And there they said, we have offended the Lord. And Samuel judged Israel at Mizpah. And the Philistines heard that the Israelites had assembled at Mizpah, and the Philistine overlords came up against Israel. And the Israelites heard and were afraid of the Philistines. And the Israelites said to Samuel, do not hold still from crying out for us to the Lord our God, that he rescue us from the hands of the Philistines. And Samuel took one suckling lamb and offered it up whole as a burnt offering to the Lord. And Samuel cried out to the Lord on behalf of Israel, and the Lord answered him. And just as Samuel was offering up the offering, the Philistines drew near to do battle with Israel. And the Lord thundered with a great sound on that day upon the Philistines and panicked them, and they were routed before Israel. And the men of Israel sallied forth from Mizpah and pursued the Philistines and struck them down as far as below Beth-car. And Samuel took a single stone and set it up between Mizpah and Shen. And he called its name Ebenezer. And he said, as far as here has the Lord helped us. And the Philistines were brought low, and they no longer came into Israelite country. And the hand of the Lord was against the Philistines all the days of Samuel. And the towns that the Philistines had taken from Israel were returned to Israel, from Ekron as far as Gath, and their territories Israel retrieved from the hands of the Philistines. And there was peace between Israel and the Amorite. And Samuel judged Israel all the days of his life. And he would go about from year to year and come round from Bethel and Gilgal and Mizpah, and would judge Israel in all these places. And his point of return was Ramah, for there his home was, and there he judged Israel. And he built there an altar to the Lord.
I like that they always put stone.
Yeah.
Ebenezer.
Yeah, this one was Ebenezer.
You know, I listened to that, and he says, put away your false gods. And in my mind, the question popped up today, who are our false gods that we need to put away and turn from?
Now the Ashtoreth was the goddess, a fertility goddess, sexual love, and war goddess. And Baal was like a storm god they were talking about. So, you know, they had, seeing the ark come back, the people were coming back to the Lord. And so they were going to get rid of all their idols. You know, that's what they're supposed to be doing. And it said, but even as we get into David's story, David kept some idols in his house, you know, so how successful, you know, are they? And Samuel here is, it says he is judging. So he is one of the lesser, you know, judges, because you talk about in the book of Judges, I think we have like, there are 6 major judges. Othniel, Ehud, Deborah, Gideon, Jephthah, and Samson were the major judges in the story of Judges, and some lesser ones, Shamgar, Tola, Zair, Ibzan, Elon, Abdon, and then the judges. So those are the judges that were apparently in the book of Judges. And then the other judges that we see when we get into Samuel that are mentioned are Eli is a judge for a while, and then Samuel is a prophet and a judge. So we kind of think about as we move into chapter 8, that's when the people are going to be calling for no longer judges just aren't working for us, kind of a thing.
We want to be like everybody.
Other nations. We want to be like the other nations. Okay, there. So here, under Samuel's leadership, by him turning to God, they were able to defeat the Philistines. You know, the Philistines saw all of these people coming together to Mizpah, and he said, "Oh, good time to attack again." And then Samuel didn't pull an army together and try to do it with his own power. He went to God and prayed for help. And I remember where the one statement where I forget where it is. He says, you know, Lord, you know, Samuel, call on the Lord again, you know, tell him we need help here, you know, that they were finally, you know, coming to God, and who was supposed to be their king in the beginning? You know, who's the king under Judges? It's supposed to be God. So we'll see what God thinks about that, you know, in the next chapter. Any other thoughts, you know, when you think of this particular chapter?
There was something I read that like in Samuel, you know, in verses 15 and 16, talking about him going around to all the different places. So like,
And I'm liking him to the old circuit court judges.
Uh-huh.
You know, that you rode your circuit around how court. How they
Yeah.
thought maybe functioned as a
Yeah.
judge.
Yeah, they were kind of happy with Samuel, you know.
Samuel got them the results they want.
That's,
You know, their city's bad.
by
the
going to,
Philistines
by
don't
going
need
to
it.
God, yeah. You know.
They didn't necessarily make that connection that they, oh, Samuel's great. Samuel's great because his power comes from God. I always think about, in fact, David reminded me, my grace is sufficient, but we forget the second part, which is your power is made strong in my weakness. Like, it's when I'm weakest that your power can shine through.
And the people didn't only just get rid of their idols, you know, it says that they got rid of their idols, but they also assembled and they drew water and they poured it out and they did certain ceremonies. You know, they did some other things to ask for, to kind of repent for what they had been doing.
Do you know what pouring out the water means?
No, my footnote, yeah, didn't, said that was a very strange thing. He didn't have a good reason for it either.
I know
They
that.
fasted and they confessed.
But maybe if you're in the desert, pouring out the water is a true act of sacrifice.
That's what came to my mind.
Yeah, because I know on Patmos there is no fresh water, but when they take you down to the cave where John was when he saw the visions, you're told to take no food or drink. And I went, a guy took a bottle of water with him, and first off they expelled him out of the cave, and then the monk poured the water on the ground and did prayer. You know, there is no fresh water, and they poured out this bottle of fresh water. So I was kind of thinking of that, and this pouring out of the water. And I think the sacrifice to God, this truly is.
So one commentator had said that this lesson shows that genuine repentance opens the door to God's blessing and deliverance through prayer and obedience. And then we come to the next chapter is chapter 8. And that's where we start getting into, we want a king story. We want a king story. And why did they want a king in the first place? What had been happening in Judges? And if you remember, just to kind of backtrack a little bit with Judges, and I found an interesting story with Kirsch, with Kirsch, that I wanted to kind of go over before we get into chapter 8. And so Israel asked for a king rather than recognizing God as the king. And if we remember back in Joshua led the tribes of Israel into the promised land and calling on them to be faithful to their covenant God and obeying the commands of the Torah and being an example to other nations, having God as your head, being a sample to other nations. But in Judges, it begins with the death of Joshua, and unfortunately, the story of Israel's total failure, at that point, that the Israelites found that the pagan gods and the goddesses of the Canaanites, they found them more alluring to worship than God. So rather than being an example to other nations, they were allowing the other nations to influence them and how they lived. And it said, from Judges 3, it says, and the children of Israel did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord and forgot the Lord their God. And as a punishment, whereas God had said, I'm going to give you this promised land and all of these other people that are living in it, I'm going to take care of that. He didn't take care of that. So they had to basically battle against the people that were sharing the promised land. And it says, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he delivered them into the hands of the spoilers that spoiled them. But Israel, the Israelites not only were fighting against the Canaanites and all of the people in their land and the nations that surrounded that, they couldn't even get along with each other. If we remember, although there were 12 tribes, okay, that claimed descent from Jacob or Israel, it's known as Israel, they bickered and battled one another in a series of blood feuds that turned the promised land into a wasteland. And this is from Kirsch, the story. And it says the moral decay reached a climax in a story in the book of Judges. I don't know if you've read this one, Kathy, if you were following Kirsch. But it says, and this is from Kirsch, and it says a cautionary tale about a nameless woman who was gang raped by her fellow Israelites. It says, on a journey from Bethlehem to the hill country of Ephraim, a man from the tribe of Levi and his concubine were forced to spend the night in a town that belonged to the tribe of Benjamin. A crowd of rowdy Benjamites gathered around the house where they were sheltering and demanded that the guests be surrendered to them for their sexual pleasure. To spare himself, the Levite pushes his concubine out the door and offers her to the mob in place of him. Here, take her. But that's not where the story. Then all night long, while the Levite and his host cower in the house, the woman is raped to death. Her body is left on the threshold of the house. And that's not where the story ends. It says, demanding retribution, outraged Levite hacks the woman's battered body into 12 pieces. So the guy who offered her up, hacks her up and sends the bloody chunks to the other tribes as a call to arms against the Benjamites. Okay. And all of Israel unites in a war to punish the Benjamite men, women, and children alike, and the tribe is nearly exterminated. So we almost don't have Benjamin anymore. At the last moment, the rest of the Israelites suddenly remorseful at the prospect of genocide and spare the last 600 Benjamite men because there were no women left. And
We're always the first to go.
and so
Thrown out the door, first to go.
But since none of the women survived the slaughter, the Benjamite men were sent to Shiloh by their fellow Israelites with instructions to seize the young virgins of the town and use them to repopulate the tribe of Benjamin.
I love you.
So that good movie.
Oh, yeah, this one just keeps getting better.
Thus, the rape and murder of a single woman prompted the rape and abduction of 600 more women, and only by these desperate and ugly means is the tribe of Benjamin preserved from extermination. And it says the Bible author of this particular passage, in Judges, offers a political rather than a theological rationale for the ghastly state of affairs in Israel. And he says he blames all the failings of the chosen people on the simple fact that they were not yet ruled by a king.
So this thinking had been sitting there brewing for,
Yeah,
sounds like for a while.
yeah, right. And the book of Judges is a sequence of horrible incidents like this to persuade the original readers that not only only a king would be able to put an end to the chaos and impose moral law and order to the Israelites. And in Judges 21, it says, in those days, there was no king in Israel, and every man did that which was right in his own eyes. Okay.
So that's the beginning of the Southern Kingdom. The Southern Kingdom was made up of Benjamin and Judah. So what an auspicious beginning for the Southern Kingdom.
Yeah.
And I think, Harold, I would even say a foreshadowing of of the first king, David, who eventually raped Bathsheba. So, we're setting up for that.
So,
That was not unusual behavior,
No,
it seems like
definitely
in
not.
those days, so.
Yeah, women were just property.
so the give us a king idea, there were two deeply divided factions. One preferred the old-fashioned theocracy, okay, the leadership of a devout men and women who felt that they were called to judge the people of Israel, so the judges. The other favored the new institution of monarchy, and its members wanted a king like the ones who reigned in Egypt and Mesopotamia and all of these other little nations that they had come to know. And it says theocracy prevailed in the early period with the 6 judges, but the judges really never succeeded in imposing divine law. God is king, and these judges of devout religious people below that. And it said again and again, the Israelites hearkened not unto their judges, or they went astray after other gods and worshiped them. So that's where we get to chapter 8. Okay, a little bit of a background on what's happening in Judges, and that there were 2 big factions, one wanting, the God as king, and one wanting to have put it in human hands.
Same story that comes forward, looking for a Messiah. Same thing, they want a king, hear everything apart.
And make them victorious again in the north.
So chapter 8 is labeled Israel asks for a king. Okay, and here we come into the second part of the story in Samuel, where this is starting Saul's story and his identification and his rise to power. So if someone, 8 is just 21 verses. If someone could read 8.
I can do it.
Okay.
When Samuel became old, he made his sons judges over Israel. Right, so remember Eli and his sons?
It's not going to be any different.
The name of his firstborn son was Joel, and the name of his second, Abijah. And they were judges in Beersheba. Yet his sons did not follow in his ways, but turned aside after gain. They took bribes and perverted justice. Then all the leaders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah and said to him, "You are old, and your sons do not follow in your ways. Appoint for us, then, a king to govern us like other nations." But the thing displeased Samuel when they said, "Give us a king to govern us." Samuel prayed to the Lord, and the Lord said to Samuel, "Listen to the voice of the people and all that they say to you. For they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me from being king over them. Just as they have done to me from the day I brought them up out of Egypt to this day, forsaking me and serving other gods, so also they are doing to you. Now then, listen to their voice. Only you shall solemnly warn them and show them the ways of the king who shall reign over them." So Samuel reported all the words of the Lord to the people who were asking him for a king. He said, "There will be the ways of the king who will reign over you. These will be the ways. He will take your sons and appoint them to his chariots and to be his horsemen and to run before his chariots. And he will appoint for them commanders of thousands and commanders of 50s, and some to plow his ground and to reap his harvest and to make his implements of war and the equipment of his chariots. He will take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and vineyards and olive orchards and give them to his courtiers. He will take 1/10 of your grain and of your vineyards and give it to his officers and his courtiers.
He will take your male and female slaves and the best of your cattle and donkeys and put them to his work. He will take 1/10 of your flocks, and you shall be his slaves. And in that day you will cry out because of your king, whom you have chosen for yourselves, but the Lord will not answer you in that day. But the people refused to listen to the voice of Samuel. They said, "No, we are determined to have a king over us, so that we may also be like other nations, and that our king may govern us and go out before us and fight our battles." When Samuel had heard all the words of the people, he repeated them in the ears of the Lord. The Lord said to Samuel, "Listen to their voice and set a king over them." Samuel then said to the people of Israel, "Each of you return home."
I had one very different word. Go back to verse 5. Where Samuel didn't like it.
And he said to them, "You are old and your sons do not go on your ways." Oh, but 6, it says, "But the thing displeased Samuel." When they said,
Mine says Samuel saw it as evil. Or evil, not
yeah,
just,
Alter's translation is interesting at
Yeah.
times. Yeah,
Yeah.
I learned a lot from reading its translation. Yeah. Evil.
So this section, the Israelites are saying, we want a king like the other people have. You know, that's what we need, because your sons are corrupt. They're not going to be like you, and you're old, so you're not going to be here much longer. So your sons are going to be corrupt, and then so give us a king, quick. So even Samuel, the last judge who had helped them defeat the Philistines, you know, he was ineffective. You know, it says he was an ineffective father whose sons rejected his pious ways and turned aside after taking bribes and perverting justice, etc. So he had kind of forfeited the confidence of the elders, who fretted over what would happen when he was going to be gone. And give us a king. So the elders come and confront him, and Samuel really felt this was unholy. Right. That Israel was a theocracy, not a monarch. It said Moses had revealed to the Israelites that they had been chosen to be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation, and their one and only sovereign was Yahweh. If you hearken to my voice and keep my covenant, God vowed, then ye shall be mine own treasure from all the peoples, from among all the peoples. So you'll be the treasure. You'll be an example to all the nations, not those nations being an example and you wanting to turn away to them. So the rule of kings, according to the 5 books of Moses, was strictly for the non-Jewish people. It was unworthy of the chosen people to accept another king. And that's where Samuel's coming from. And just think about God. You know, God said, they didn't reject you, they rejected me. They're rejecting me, so I'm going to give them what they want.
it'll serve them right.
It'll serve them right. To let them see, here's what's going to happen. You go and you tell them, here's what's going to happen. And they said, we don't care. You know.
But the interesting thing is that Israel really hadn't been doing well under the judges. I mean,
No,
they
it
had
hadn't.
been corrupt and evil, and so it's just doesn't seem to matter who your ruler is, a judge
That's
or a king.
Yeah.
If it's a human being,
Yeah.
gonna run afoul.
Right. Right. And I think that in one thing that I had read, it called the Goyim, Goyim. It was non-Jewish, non-Jewish people. Kingship was only good for them, the non-Jewish people. It was unworthy of us. So Samuel, when they asked him for a king, he said, I'm gonna have to talk with God about this kind of a thing. So God in his response, it regards what the Israelites are asking for as a personal insult. Listen to all that but listen to all that the people are saying to you. It is not you they have rejected, but they have rejected me as their king. So like a frustrated father, he was ready to punish the chosen people by giving them exactly what they wanted. If they were tired of eating manna in the wilderness, God gave them in Exodus, remember, they got tired. We're tired of eating this stuff. And he said he gave them so much quail to eat that it says it came out their noses, So this is, God took a stance. If they preferred a mortal king to the king of the universe, he gave it to them, but they would live to regret it.
Sounds like Eisenhower talking about spam.
Your daughters and sons he will take. So God directs Samuel, hey, go and tell them, warn them about this. Warn them what's going to happen. That in the end, it's going to be suicide, for Israel to have king. And I think that it was Kirsch, but the statement that this was written after David was apparently dead and gone, and that this writer slipped in this manifest against the monarchy in this, as talking about, look, this is going to happen. This is what happened to David, kind of a thing. So it was kind of this writer's manifest, with this in there. Any other thoughts? And one other statement that I had read was, it says, this should really bother us that they asked for a king, because Israel had a king in God. He was trying to teach the Israelites how to become different from the other nations in order to become a blessing to those nations. But the cultural pressures to have a leader like the Canaanites proved more powerful. Their hearts were not aligned to God, and so he honored their request.
Yeah, this is weird, but I'm sitting here remembering as a kid asking for permission to do things from my father. And he would ask me why I wanted to do whatever I was asking for. And I would say, because everybody else is doing it. And his reply was always, and if everybody else jumped off a building, would you jump off too? No, you can't do it. And so, it stuck with me, and now,
Now you're this independent-minded person.
yeah, it's really hard to get along with. But, so much in our culture is, I think fashion, whether it's home fashion or clothing, what's in, and if you like something that's not in, don't go looking for it, because you're not going to find it.
Right. I mean, that's what.
Might find it at the thrift store.
Well, I'm thinking in terms of home fashion, I like cranberry red.
Yeah.
That's not in style.
It's not now, but when it's in style, I stock up. I know, now we know this.
Yeah.
So I've got a cranberry red tablecloth and napkins and a cranberry red countertop. But, I'm thinking about redoing my kitchen, and I'm thinking, I don't want to lose this countertop. So maybe I'll put this off until red comes back.
Yeah.
Making me think of the Devil Wears Prada, which says this, probably this scarf was picked for you 7 years ago or something like that. And I knew some people were designed who were thinking about, your clothing 10 years from now. They already have a plan.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What they
Oh, yeah.
look like.
And I've learned that with fabric.
Yeah.
In the production of fabric, that's, that is quite a process to do that. So, so the quilt world is already planned out with the styles. And the
But
old ones don't like the new stuff.
From an environmental standpoint, this kind of stuff is killing our planet, because that's, what they call fast fashion, where all of us as consumers are programmed to think we've got to have the latest style, and so we run out and buy stuff, and a year or two later, it's out of fashion and it's the production of all these new fashions and the waste from all these fashions that get dumped from the thrift stores is killing our planet.
Right, and clothing production, the dyeing process and all that, it's the second largest source of pollution in the world.
Let's, before we.
Sorry.
Let's just get a little taste of Saul here.
Okay.
So if someone could read 1 through 14, it'll give us a little idea of who this guy is that God's gonna pick, for the king. So just 1 through 14
In chapter 9.
in chapter 9.
Okay. There was a man of Benjamin whose name was Kish, son of Abiel, son of Zeror, son of Bechorath, son of Aphiah, a Benjaminite, a man of wealth. He had a son whose name was Saul, a handsome young man. There was not a man among the people of Israel more handsome than he. He stood head and shoulders above everyone else. Now the donkeys of Kish, Saul's father, had strayed. So Kish said to his son Saul, "Take one of the boys with you. Go and look for the donkeys." He passed through the hill country of Ephraim and passed through the land of Shalishah, but they did not find them. And they passed through the land of Shalim, but he was not there. And they passed through the land of Benjamin, but they did not find them. So they came to the land of Zuph. Saul said to the boy who was with him, "Let us turn back, or my father will stop worrying about the donkeys and worry about us." But he said to him, "There is a man of God in this town. He is a man held in honor. Whatever he says always comes true. Let us go there now. Perhaps he will tell us about the journey on which we have set out." Then Saul replied to the boy, "But if we go, what can we bring the man? For the bread in our sacks is gone, and there is no present to bring the man of God. What have we?" The boy answered Saul again, "Here, I have with me a quarter shekel of silver. I will give it to the man of God to tell us our way." Formerly in Israel, anyone who went to inquire of God would say, "Come, let us go to the seer," for the one who is now called a prophet was formerly called a seer. So Saul said to the boy, "Good, come, let us go." So they went to the town where the man of God was. And they went up the hill into the town. They met some girls coming out to draw water. And they said to them, "Is the seer here?" They answered, "Yes, he is just ahead of you. Hurry, he has come just now to the town because the people have a sacrifice today at the shrine. As soon as you enter the town, you will find him before he goes up to the shrine to eat. For the people will not eat until he comes, since he must bless the sacrifice. Afterward, those eat who are invited. Now go up, or you will meet him immediately." So they went up to the town. As they were entering the town, they saw Samuel coming out toward them on his way up to the shrine. Now
You could stop there. I think you can stop there. So here's Saul. He's the asses strayed, and here he's being sent after them, and he's going here and there and everywhere. He can't find them anywhere. So it's kind of setting you up to get a little bit of. He's a handsome guy and he's real tall, but he's a little kind of dopey. Okay, it's what you're seeing here, and we know from all the other stories that we've heard, the person that God usually chooses. But one other thing that you notice with Saul is what from the very first sentence in here, he was a Benjamite.
Yeah, after hearing that story.
Okay. So he came from the smallest of the 12 tribes, and the actual clan that he belongs to is Matri. It's the humblest clan of the Benjamin tribe. So, as Saul himself will mention and remind us later on, why are you choosing me? I come from the smallest place in the smallest tribe. And we'll also see next week how Samuel manipulates the vote to make sure that Saul is the one that is selected. Okay. Because God has named it, so he wants to make these people think that they chose it. Okay. So we'll talk all about that next week.
Wow.
Let's start with 9:15.